Hello, friends, and welcome to Over the Top Rope on Backbreaker Media. It is episode 34 of the flagship podcast of the Win Column Sports Network, where you can find all of your previews, reviews, and breaking news in Albertan wrestling and from the world of wrestling at large. I am your host, Spencer Love, joined as always by my co-host, my brother of discussion, Hayden Love. Hayden, what's up?
Not much.
I'm excited you're here. It's always good to talk about wrestling with you, my friend. There's lots to talk about. Lots going on in Alberta, and obviously on the road to WrestleMania. Lots going on in the WWE. But, as mentioned, we are an Albertan-based podcast, so I think that an appropriate place to start would be right here in Alberta. And Vegreville, Alberta, is where we're going to start, which, for those who are unfamiliar on the wrestling end, is, of course, the home of the world's largest Pasenka.
Well, second largest, but
of course, Hayden. And for those who had listened to episode 33 of Over the Top Rope, you would have already known that commonly debunked fact.
Everybody should know that.
However, despite having only the second largest Pasenka, it was home to quite possibly the most anticipated match on the Albertan independent wrestling scene.
You should have said the biggest match.
Thank you. The wind has been taken completely out of my sails with that joke, but moving on anyways. Chris Parrish, one half of Tag Struggle, taking on God's gift to wrestling, Michael Richard Blais, one half of the Western Lions, in what, genuinely, Hayden, I will say again, is one of the most anticipated, if not the most anticipated matches on the Albertan independent wrestling scene. And
no question.
for those who were not able to get out to Vegreville, as Hayden and I both unfortunately were not, Backbreaker Media is going to have it out very, very shortly. The release date is pending. However, when you get the chance to watch it, I highly suggest that you do so. What an absolute barn burner, and these two just absolutely went out and proved why Alberta is one of the places to be if you want to watch high quality independent wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, got Hayden and I to thinking, and I do have to give my quick shout out to our friend Kyle Shaw of Monday Night Shaw here on the Backbreaker Media Network, because him and myself and Andre, who commonly hosts Quick Calls as well as Total Nonstop Anarchy, also here on the network. Mike, man, you're really going to love this episode. There's a lot of cheap plugs in there for you, my friend. But the three of us sort of discussed what we called Alberta Mania, and what it essentially consisted of was a few dream matches from across the Albertan independent wrestling scene. And for me, it was fairly unique because I was a lot less familiar with a lot of the RCW talents at the time. I was a lot more familiar with the PWA talent at the time. And while I'm still familiar with PWA, very excited by the time this podcast comes out, it is going to be tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow, March 23rd, that we will get to go to the 18th anniversary show for the PWA featuring Jeff Cobb.
I'm just so excited.
Dude, I don't know if you have heard this by this point, but now the Omen Gabriel versus Jeff Cobb will be for the Ring of Honor World TV Championship.
Oh my God.
Right?
No way.
Yep. So very excited on that end. But I'm a lot more familiar on the RCW end, and thankfully so, because those are some incredible wrestlers out there. But there's also some promotions that I don't even think you may have had the chance to go out and see, but I'm talking like Monster Pro Wrestling, or I guess the former CWC down in Calgary, which featured a lot of the same talents as RCW, but was a different promotion altogether. PPW, obviously, is mentioned down in Lethbridge, and I'm sure a myriad that I'm not even remembering at this point, and my apologies to those individuals. But it got me to thinking, Hayden, you were someone who was much in my position you were in a much similar position that I was during that podcast. And now I have taken on the role of the proverbial Qui-Gon Jinn. So
you died and you became part of the Force?
Yes, I have become part of the Force.
All you do is sit and watch wrestling?
Yeah. Does that not sound like the ideal for becoming part of the Force, Hayden?
Well, I guess the whole purpose of becoming one with the Force is to train to become one with the Force, or so is established in Episode 3 of Star Wars.
So here's my question, what do you do once you become part of the Force? Because I would have to assume that Obi-Wan Kenobi was not the first person to do it.
No. Well, Qui-Gon before him. I mean, Qui-Gon was the one that actually taught him how to become one with the Force.
Qui-Gon Jinn got stabbed.
That would be a wicked...
That's not... He did not become one with the Force. He simply got stabbed.
Well, you can...
Obi-Wan Kenobi full-on disappeared while a lightsaber was attacking him. I feel like if Qui-Gon Jinn had...
Well, he became a ghost, and, like, ghosts go to heaven. But,
I think that's the opposite. I feel like if you're a ghost, you're in some sort of
think
proverbial purgatory.
I think this is sort of like comparing, like, somebody getting stabbed in the Old Testament to Jesus just ascending to heaven in the New Testament. Just taking all the disciples to the top of the hill and just saying peace, ascending to heaven.
Okay.
Like, he just... that's essentially what happened.
I'm not up to date on my scripture.
But in the end, like, they all go to heaven. But, you know, some people get stuck in purgatory. Some Jedi get stuck in whatever the heck.
And Hayden, I feel like you and I could do a whole different podcast.
We're stuck in purgatory right now. We need to get back on track.
I feel like we could do a whole different podcast on the interpretation of Star Wars as a religious text. Well, however, we are not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about wrestling. And Hayden will have the question I posed to you this week, my fellow brother of discussion, are for you, I suppose, to name some of your Alberta independent dream matches. Now, some qualifications here. They have to be wrestlers who you and I suppose, would actively consider active Albertan wrestlers. Like Jeff Cobb, for example, who I'm very, very excited to see. We can't sit and include him in this list on our dream card of Albertan wrestlers, because as much as I would love to put people like Rachel Ellering or bring back a Giselle Shaw or Frenetico, who I haven't seen in forever.
God.
Right?
Yeah.
I would love to have individuals like that on the card. However, I have not observed them in a while. Therefore, we cannot include them on this list. And I also feel like you and I differed a bit on this part, but I conceded it, is we are going to feature multi-man matches because there's just simply too many people out there. There can be stipulations. This is going to be very similar, I suppose, to Alberta Mania, but...
No, and regardless of how talented all of these wrestlers that we're going to talk about are, like, there are just some matches that make more sense and would just be, you know, objectively better matches, as opposed to just throwing them in something random and hoping that it works out.
100%, like... For lack of a better way to put it, you want to put people in the environment in which they will succeed the most.
Mm-hmm.
If you got a wrestler who, I guess, is more of a hardcore wrestler, for lack of a better way to put it, because there's not any promotions out there that feature any true hardcore wrestling. Like, nobody's jumping onto barbed wire through glass, at least as far as I'm aware. However, there are definitely some wrestlers out there who have taken some bumps that would
qualify.
would hurt a lesser man or woman.
You are correct.
So, those have been included. Hayden, I think that you and I both agree on the first match here, and I also feel like it's a logical starting point for you and I. These go in no particular order, so your first dream match that you've got on there, Hayden, is one that I feel like everybody else will also clamor to see.
Yeah, and it was a matchup that you mentioned earlier on. It was the Western Lions and Chris Parrish and Maniac tag struggle, taking each other on. That was horribly phrased. I really butchered how I laid that out. But
that's okay. Recover strong.
But yeah, I mean, like, you and I watched the match. It was a hell of a match, as to be expected. Who wouldn't benefit from seeing these two men grab their tag partners and just having a 2-on-2 classic tag team matchup?
Completely agree, and much in the way that we talk about Maniac not being as appreciated as he should be as a wrestler, I think the same can be said about Brandon Van Danielson, or whatever order you want to put them in. Just like, it's a pick your personal favorite, because all of these guys bring something so different to the ring in what they do. Like, Brandon Van Danielson may be the toughest individual in Albertan wrestling. That much I don't think can really be... No, it can be debated. There's a lot of tough guys out there. That's for other people to settle as we go through this list here. But Brandon Van Danielson is a tough SOB. Chris Parrish and MRB, they proved what they can do. Maniac, like, I've watched the guy get a headlock over in matches. The guy's consistently one of the most entertaining wrestlers out there. I think the guy's underappreciated as just an actual wrestler goes.
Yeah, he's a bastard in real life, but
Oh yeah, 100%.
like no question.
I'll
But,
agree with you there. I've met the guy a couple of times, and like all he does is make you buy him beer.
yeah, but he can go straight to hell.
You
But
know,
he
that's
can
not
wrestle
even
there.
true.
Yeah. No, but
He's
can,
always paid for his own beer.
Yeah, you can.
The rest is up to you.
You can see it where you can. Hell of a wrestler, and like we can't really talk ad nauseum about this match because I mean it speaks for itself. Like
They're matches we
it'd be a
anticipate,
wicked
but
match.
we can't talk too much. Like that's all there is to it.
Yeah,
It'd be
and
fantastic.
I hope to God we get to see it soon. It seems like we will.
One day, Hayden. One day. Now, my first singles match that I had here on the card that I would thoroughly enjoy seeing, and a guy that we've brought up, I haven't seen in a while, but still could reasonably be considered for this list, versus someone who really just made a huge statement in the Alberta independent wrestling scene. I would love, Hayden, to see Skyflyer Jeff Tyler versus Son of Irish.
My God.
My God, indeed, Hayden. I think that the two would match up absolutely incredibly. Again, two personal favorites. I feel like I'll say that about a lot of individuals here. Jeff Tyler is an absolute vet, and I was lucky enough to check the guy out in Saskatchewan for HIW about a year ago, probably a little over that.
Very cool.
Again, very, very good wrestler. He's Skyflyer Jeff Tyler for a reason.
Yeah, he's God, essentially.
I know a lot of friends of mine also appreciate Skyflyer Jeff Tyler as well.
Yeah, we
He's
here,
a personal favorite.
We here at Win Column Sports most certainly do appreciate Skyflyer Jeff Tyler.
I have to say it every time, the loudest curse I've ever heard in a wrestling ring in my entire life. Like, I have never heard, like, from what I've heard, the guy genuinely, like, shattered his ankle.
Yeah.
Or people could just be lying to me in an effort to make him, like, grow the legend of Jeff Tyler.
You took the words out of my mouth.
The guy's a stud, though.
Yep.
I would just like to shake his hand.
And still put on a hell of a match.
Right? Like, I think that I remember that Spanish fly off the top rope between him and MRB. That was absolutely nuts. And then you look at Son of Irish, who I think could be compared to Jeff Tyler in a lot of ways, but Jeff Tyler is a veteran. Like, there's no other way to put it. The guy's obviously incredibly experienced in the ring. And I think that Son of Irish, like, the guy's young, but I wouldn't say he's inexperienced, or I wouldn't say he's raw. Like, that match against MRB was fantastic. Like, that shooting star press, man, was nuts. I think it was even you that was telling me, like, you found it on, like, Reddit or something like that.
Came up on the front page, yeah.
Yeah, like, immediately the night of that match. And the kid is probably one of the most talented individuals. I hesitate to even say kid. Like, I don't know how old the guy could be. The guy could be 30. Maybe just age well. I've never met him.
You gotta wonder.
I've never met him. Son of Irish, you were always invited on any of these podcasts, to be honest with you. If anybody wanted to come on this one.
Please.
Doesn't have to just be an interview show.
Yeah, we need to shake things up.
Come and shoot the shit.
Please. It's a sincere
People
plea.
are tired of Hayden and I talking. But either way, Jeff Tyler versus Son of Irish
Yeah.
would be an absolute barn burner.
I gotta agree. Maybe this is a show we'll get to see out in Vegreville, home of the second largest Pasanka in the world, one day.
Dude, there are a lot. I've talked about this for years, but I would love to go and do a world's largest tour in Alberta, because there's a lot of individual items in Alberta. The one off the top of my head would be, like, obviously they've got the giant dinosaur in Drumheller.
Yep.
That would be part of the tour.
Yeah. Is that the largest dinosaur statue in the world, though?
I'm not 100% certain. However, Drumheller is the dinosaur capital of the world.
Okay.
So
They also have the largest, or not even the largest, but a life-size replica of the Santa Maria in West Edmonton Mall. Now the second or third largest mall in the world. Are we the... oh, no, it's Churchill, Manitoba that has the big moose, right? That just got surpassed by somewhere in Norway. Skio or something.
Yeah, you could be right.
I can't remember. But
Apparently they have a 1-ton duck in Andrew, Alberta. There's a fun one for you.
what the hell?
Yeah, its wingspan is 23 meters. So whether or not that's the biggest duck in the world, I couldn't tell you, but it's a 1-ton mallard duck.
Well, I envisioned a rubber duck or like or like
No.
you know what I'm thinking about? Like one with just a perfectly round body and then just a duck head.
Oh,
Not like a full like true to life duck. That's
Like a yellow duck.
what could it possibly be made out of for it to weigh 1 ton? Like steel or
I mean, I gotta be
Or
honest with
feather.
you. I'm no
well, realistically,
I'm no sorcerer. I don't know that sort of thing.
it could be made out of anything, but it just like I'm just thinking about what's compact enough to make
Markerville has a cream can that is 15 feet tall, 4.6 meters.
this this is shaping up into a hell of a tour.
Right? Like there's a lot you could do. I could just be reading it. Lac La Biche has a 12-foot David Thompson. So whether that's David Thompson statue of Lac La Biche. Oh yeah, it's 12 feet tall or 12 feet long. Excuse me.
He's lying down.
No, he is riding a canoe.
Those damn kids keep
And
toppling it over.
lastly, we've got Glendon's got a giant pierogi, 27 feet tall.
Okay, there you go. I hope they have a pierogi stand outside.
Giant pierogi on a fork in Glendon, Alberta.
See, there are just these unnecessary aspects added to it. Like this is not art.
I think the fork's probably necessary for balance. So any one of those places like
just build it
RCW,
standing up. You could
RCW management, that would be my piece of advice for you, purely as the selfish individual I am. I would love it if you could just book a tour that would subsequently take us to any and all of the towns in which...
Rent a bus.
Yeah, I'd take a tour bus and go and see all of the giant objects across Alberta. And ideally, there's some great wrestling matches while we're there.
Hey, an old DVD player or something like that. You could throw it on the bus.
Can
It'd be a great time.
watch National Treasure too.
You know what? I'm going to use one of my curses here because this is going to be a shit transition. But I think we're going to go from looking at some of the biggest objects in the world to looking at one of the biggest matches, I think, in Albertan wrestling history.
Friends, let us know how poor that transition was in any and all comment sections.
Feedback is appreciated. As we said earlier, this is an echo chamber, but hopefully somebody out there, like God, will hear the plea for this match. I'm just going to come right out and say it. I want to see Gunnar, the Pagan Destroyer, versus the Omen Gabriel, versus Mephistopheles, a.k.a. Mephisto, making his return. He can be considered active because he's returning a pro wrestling gig. Taking place when? When is that taking place again?
April 13th at the Nate Gymnasium.
Oh, very cool.
So, I believe they're at 13 grand. And I'm sure that's a little dated as well because we do record this a couple days in advance of release. But they were at 13,000 or so as of the last time I checked. So, as always, we'll always give them our cheap plug. Go out and support the great individuals. Mike Cook, founder and organizer, is able to hook any and all individuals up with tickets. Just contact them through any one of their social media channels at Pro Wrestling YEG. Mephistopheles, where did that come from?
I think that's just the full name. Like Mephisto is just. I think it's just a shortened version of Mephistopheles.
I don't believe so, Hayden.
I think it has to be. Like Mephisto is. You had I can't really spell out Mephistopheles right now.
No, you can't.
I could.
I do think that would be. That's a match completely out of left field, but a match that would be interesting just because I love how the three gimmicks would sort of
line up perfectly.
Play off each other, yeah.
It's like a perfect Triforce. I know that you mentioned that we're, trying to restrict this to plausible matches, but why don't we add some stipulations to this? Do you think this would work better as just a straight match, or do you think, throwing some interesting elements also out of left field?
Okay, you know what? If we're just going to throw some shit out of left field, I would like this to be a Newfoundland Viking Rage on a pole match.
That really is out of left field.
one of them, and I guess the other remaining three. You'd have Hawks, you'd have Vince Austin, and I forget the new individual's name. He's only appeared at the one show in Edmonton so far, but I feel really rude for forgetting people's names ever on this show.
It's human.
Either way,
happens.
Put either one of them on one of the polls.
Oh, well, that's interesting, Spencer. Got to give it to you.
You're the one who said we were pulling stuff out of left field.
Hey,
realistically, a submission match.
I said nothing.
realistically, let's have them submit each other.
I was thinking just a hardcore match. That'd be wicked.
Purely on the fact that I would love to see Gabriel pick up Gunnar and throw him in the torture rack.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, Jesus, indeed, Hayden. I would just like to see that. And Mephisto, again, is a guy who I haven't been able to watch in a while. Now, whether he's been wrestling elsewhere or not, I'm certain he would be. But he's a favorite from my initial days of going to the PWA. I am excited to see him April 13th, as mentioned. However, you're a guy who's actually even more familiar with him. Why him specifically?
I mean, the first couple of PWA shows that I went to, I think like back in 14 or 15 or something like that.
Or 12 or 11 or 9 or...
04, 2002.
1981.
I remember 2002 fondly. It was a great year. But no, he was in the main event, and for good reason. Like, the guy can put on a hell of a match. He's got a hell of a gimmick. And with hell in mind, you've asked where he's gone. I think he's back in hell, recharging, preparing for his forthcoming match at
God.
Pro Wrestling Yag. Or possibly against, the Omen Gabriel.
You're
and
one
the
of
Pagan
those
Destroyer
Yag guys, aren't you?
But yeah, in all seriousness, like, the guy was a great wrestler. And it kind of sucked to see him just up and leave or head out wherever he headed out just so abruptly. But no, I'd love to see him back, and I'm excited to see him back.
See, here's my question for you, Hayden. Outside of wrestling, if this was taking place in Vancouver, like, do you think people call it Wurver? Like, their airport code is YVR? Like, Pro Wrestling Yag?
Well, yeah.
It's not a Pasenka, Hayden.
I think calling it Yag is, like, fairly common, dude.
I'm not sure.
I think it is.
I feel like it's like the GIF debate.
It certainly is, but a lot of people still call it an animated GIF, even though it's an animated GIF.
Okay, whatever you say.
What do you say? Do you think it's a GIF?
I say the same, but I'm not going to open up that can of worms, mostly because there's only two of us here to argue.
Yep.
And there's no sense in going around in circles, Hayden, about how right you and I are.
Well, we are.
Hayden, moving on to one more singles match here, because you just covered off actually a pretty interesting match. However, one that I would like to talk about next is one that I think many people would actually hotly anticipate. Were it to be announced anywhere on any card at any time, I would kill to see Pride versus Sean Moore.
That would be tight.
But
why that match in particular, Spencer?
Sean Moore is a guy who is, I often say, completely underrated. Now, whether he was injured, whether he was, again, just wrestling elsewhere, like, I can never comment on what actually goes on as far as where people go. It's very difficult to keep track of people if they leave Alberta or if they get hurt or anything like that, because you don't get news on the level that you do WWE or anything. So, Sean Moore, I apologize for not knowing where you went, but man, I am happy that you are a guy that I'm getting to catch up with right now, because since taking the Commonwealth Championship from Mo Jabari, who is another personal favorite of mine, so initially I'm upset when he loses a championship, Sean Moore has taken the proverbial ball and run with it. Like, every match he has is great. The guy is a hell of an athlete. The guy is someone who, if he wasn't a Commonwealth champion, I would think he'd be a guy going for the championship.
I got to agree on that part.
The only reason I won't speak to which champion he is in HIW, out in Saskatchewan, is I'm not sure what the championship's actually called, and I don't have access to searching it up right now. However, he's a champion in HIW as well. And the guy's just overall a stud, and I think you know where I stand on Pride. The guy's made a huge impact over pretty well all of Alberta, I think you could say by this point. He's headed out to Winnipeg, made an impact out there now, wrestling for PCW. Obviously, envy by his side at most points, but not a part of this match because, damn it, you got one later. I'm excited to see what the two would be able to do together, and just purely due to the restrictions laid down by city limits. It's not one I think that we'll get to see anytime soon unless we do head out to another satellite town, for lack of a better way to put them.
And that almost, sort of amplifies the appeal of the match.
Right?
Yeah. But,
dream matches are dream matches almost for the reason that you think they'll never happen.
And it goes without saying with most of these matches. But like these guys' styles would mesh, perfectly.
Agreed.
Like this wouldn't be just, you know, two guys playing off each other that are unfamiliar, or that's, you know, an unorthodox pairing. Like these guys will both work a fast-paced, technical, high-flying, but fantastic style overall. Jesus, I tripped up over a lot of those words.
That's fine.
Darn, Spencer.
Hayden, we are an unedited podcast for the most part, other than the fact that sometimes I turn my voice down because I have a tendency to shout. I have voice modulation, Hayden.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to take on another one here just because it's a match that I don't need to comment a ton on, just for the best reasons possible, because I think that these guys would go out and beat the ever-loving hell out of each other. Jude Dawkins, Colton Kelly, Dan O'Burns, and Vince Austin in a hardcore match.
Fatal 4-way hardcore match. That's pretty wicked.
Beating the absolute living hell out of each other. The four, just from watching them, I've been lucky enough to have Colton Kelly on the show before. The guy's dream match is New Jack, which I think tells you a little bit about the guy liking to take a bit of a beating.
I think that tells you everything about the guy.
100%. I've just got to assume that the other three, just from the styles that they have worked before, getting to watch them wrestle in ring, like, they're insane in every way that I love my professional wrestlers being insane. So let these guys go to town. As they say in Anchorman, no commercials, no mercy.
And with no commercials, let's talk about another four-way. But a women's four-way.
No commercials yet.
Yes.
No mercy.
Yes, soon.
Okay.
But not right now.
Well, and one opportunity, sorry, just before we get into it, like, there's a lot of opportunity for me around the women's scene in Alberta. I think there's a lot of talented women out there that I haven't even had the chance to watch yet, to be honest with you yet, but that is what it is. I think that some of the women in this province are some of the most talented wrestlers I've had the pleasure of getting to see.
I must
as
agree.
far as wrestlers in this province. So, Hayden, your ideal women's match in Alberta.
Well, you and I kind of worked together on this.
Yeah, we combined our brains.
Yeah, and just like
our combined powers were like the Wonder Twins.
Jesus, you read my mind. Were they the ones that assumed the shapes of things through
Yes.
their rings? Yeah.
Yeah, the Wonder Twins.
Damn. Okay.
Underrated.
Yeah.
Underrated superheroes. I would watch like a realistic, you talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I would watch a Wonder Twins based movie.
That'd be pretty cool.
Wouldn't be bad.
Would it be live action?
I would have to assume so.
Or would it be cartoon?
Dude, nothing's cartoon anymore.
No. It's kind
Absolutely
of a travesty.
nothing is cartoon anymore.
It really does suck.
Dumbo's not even a cartoon anymore. Think about the fact that our kids will grow up with like this being their Dumbo, which for all I know could be a great movie, but
it's just kind of sacrilegious.
I would have to agree with you there.
Yeah.
Completely sacrilegious.
Just odd, but it's from another generation.
And it's
for another generation, I guess.
These young whippersnappers, Hayden.
Yeah.
I tell ya.
Okay. But from Dumbo and elephants to women, we let's just throw it out there. Angelica versus Cherry Doll versus Kat Von Hees versus Envy.
Yeah, I think there's
two each.
There's a lot of great women in that match, and all for very different reasons. I think that, you know, we talk a lot about Kat Von Hees being one of the most powerful women out there. I think Angelica, like, she brings a unique combination of speed and strength as well. Like, she's got a ton of power behind her too, and I think that was something that I didn't really even appreciate until, to be honest with you, like, she was throwing some devastating chair shots to Envy at the last RCW show that I was able to attend prior to there.
And that was sort of the basis for this fatal four-way. Was I still have yet to see a match between the two. That's what I suggested, but once again, you've just seen more of that than I have.
Yeah, and they've put on a ton of classics, man.
Yeah, but
an absolute ton. Like, they bring out the best in each other, and I think mixing them up in there with a couple of other women who I think are just supremely talented. Cherry Doll is someone who's really just starting to get the credit that she deserves, especially now. I'm excited that she's going to be coming out with the CWE as part of their Edmonton debut on April 6th. You'll, I think, get to check her out for the first time. She used to wrestle a lot for the CWC down in Red Deer. And Kat Von Hees, man. Kat Von Hees is Kat Von Hees.
Hey, that's one that I'd love to see.
I feel like I'm saying the name Kat Von Hees a lot.
Yeah, please go on. Say Kat Von Hees one more time.
Kat Von Hees.
But, I'd love to see Kat Von Hees versus Angelica.
There's a lot of, like, individual matches you can get out of that. And I think that's
why it was so difficult to put this together. Like, you have to resort to multi-man matches just to include all of these people. Otherwise,
you turn into WrestleMania with, like, a rumored 17 matches.
Exactly. And 5 on the pre-show.
On one hand, I'm excited that a lot of people get to wrestle. Like, we're looking even at this year's WrestleMania card. There's a lot of marquee one-on-one matchups already announced, which is pretty cool. But that's neither here nor there because we're going to chat real quickly about another match that unfortunately is not just a singles match. Unfortunately, it's a triple threat tag team match. Very, very fortunately, it includes 3 of the most talented teams out there as far as I'm concerned. When you're talking about talent, you obviously have to talk about top talent, of course, Heavy Metal and Jess Youngblood versus the above average Joes. We got Aiden Adam and Kenny Stryker versus Mitch Clark and Lumberjack Larry, the former Monster Pro Wrestling tag team champions. All of these guys, former tag team champions in their own rights in their respective promotions. And 3 just great tag teams, man.
Yeah, not much more you can say, at least on my part. Like, above average Joe's seen them tons of times, consistently entertaining. A lot of fun, a lot of great energy from those guys.
100%.
Shower them with compliments. And Mitch Clark, I heard your interview, but I haven't seen him live. Lumberjack Larry, the same goes for him. But I'm sure they're great.
Oh, dude, they're absolutely fantastic. Like, again, there's a reason that all of these guys are former champions. Like, Mitch Clark and Lumberjack Larry are, again, another duo where you really talk about them playing off each other's strengths. A lot like Parrish and Maniac do in the sense that sometimes, like, Lumberjack Larry is one of, if not I even mentioned him, I'm going to bring them up a couple of times, but the Backbreaker Media honors. I brought them up a couple of times on last week's podcast as well. But Lumberjack Larry was one of the guys that I considered one of the most underrated guys out there in Alberta because he is just such a lovable character. He's so enjoyable. He's someone who instantly, as soon as you see him come out, like, he's fantastic. He's absolutely fantastic. And I feel like a lot of characters like that, sometimes you do lose a little bit of appreciation for just how good they actually are as an actual wrestler. You know what I mean?
You make a good point.
And he's one of those guys. But adding a guy, I made the comparison to Tag Struggle. Like, adding a guy like Mitch Clark, he adds, as a former, like, legitimate UFC fighter, the guy adds a lot of proverbial legitimacy to a tag team that, I'm struggling to put it so that it doesn't sound like I'm calling Larry a bad wrestler, because the guy, again, is outstanding. But
there's just a certain, not even a pedigree,
like,
but just a
he's
certain
dangerous.
edge. Yeah. Like, he was in the UFC.
Again, like
that's a certain mark,
right?
Regardless of however you'd like to frame it, like, it's something to add to somebody's repertoire, fighting capabilities. Once again, like, it is what it is.
Yeah, to extrapolate like a WWE comparison, again, is like you look at how well MMA people have done in WWE or in any other wrestling promotions. Like, they've got an added little bit of
Dan Severn, Ronda Rousey, Matt Riddle.
Everybody comes in and they're instantly made to look incredibly dangerous no matter what situation they're put in, and I feel like Mitch Clark adds that too. Butterbean. Oh my god, the Brawl for All. That would be something. I don't think I have any interest in ever doing like a watch along, because I feel like if I ever did a watch along, I'd just invite a lot of people over to watch the show.
Well, it's just guys getting their friggin' lights knocked out. Like, it's shoot fighting until a knockout.
Yep.
It's hilarious.
Oh,
but
Dr.
it's also
Steve Williams, you poor guy.
Yeah.
I think that's the second time we've mentioned him on the podcast. If not, it's the first, and you and I were talking about him, but that's the second time he's come up today.
He's a rare name
in my life. That's exactly it. He's not someone I expected to talk about nearly this much in my life, nonetheless, twice on the same day.
I just never like talking about death.
And sorry, hey, just to finish it off here, like, top talent, again, to bring up the Backbreaker Media honors, like, Heavy Metal's a guy I considered an MVP of the Alberta wrestling scene last. excuse me, Alberta wrestling scene last year. The guy's an absolute stud. He, as far as I'm aware, is a record-setting RCW heavyweight champion. Excuse me, Canadian heavyweight champion. If it's not record-setting, it was somewhere around like 490 something days, man. Like, it was an insanely long championship reign. And Big Jess Youngblood is an absolute stud. Just another big dude that can move quick, like deceptively quick. And the two just, like, there's a reason that the two carry around the book of psychology. It's because they wrote the book on psychology. They know how to wrestle like tag team wrestlers do.
Very nice.
They hold the tag ropes when making a tag, and there's nothing that I think, as you and someone who knows me and listeners of the show will know, there's nothing to me that symbolizes just how much I appreciate them as a tag team than that small little tidbit there.
It's the little things that add up.
100%. 100%, Hayden. You take the next one. I've talked a lot.
Well, we both talked a lot, Spencer.
That's the point of the podcast.
Well, yeah, we're co-hosts.
We host
at least for the introduction.
In a cohesive fashion.
Yeah. Earlier on, you mentioned Shawn Martins. And you talked a little bit about the previous PWA Commonwealth champion, Noel Jabari. This is also a match that is more or less you, or one that you brought up. And that's Mo Jabari versus Martins.
Yep.
Shawn Martins.
I think the two match up real well against each other. And I don't like talking about like booking or anything like that because it's not fun. These are all naturally built feuds among people who hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're to talk about any true, like, real bad guy, good guy dynamic, or for those listening to the podcast for the first time and do not understand the terminology of wrestling, a heel, which is the bad guy, or a baby face, which is Hayden?
You've lost me.
The good guy. So the good guy is the baby face and the heel is the bad guy. Or lady in each situation.
I don't know what you've been smoking, Spencer, but
these terms are just wacky. Stay tuned,
well
Hayden.
said.
We'll explain them here on Over the Top Rope.
I hope so.
But as far as that goes, they're guys who, like, people love to hate Shawn Martins. I love to hate Shawn Martins. He's a guy who's very easy to boo because, number one,
for good reason.
He's despicable, but number two, it's easy to hate a guy on top. Like, he's the Monster Pro Wrestling champion, right? Like,
to see these two guys cross over would be a freaking wicked dream match.
I agree. Mo Jabari is a guy who people just love, period. There's no one to me who people react as positively to or are as just naturally excited to see. He's lovable, but he's not lovable to a fault. Like, he backs it up in the ring, you know? He was, again, another guy that I talked about as being one of the most improved wrestlers in Alberta, or one of the most underrated wrestlers in Alberta, whatever you want to call it, but the guy is fantastic. I think the two would match up very, very well against each other, and I think that the two would get the crowd invested in the proper fashion, for lack of a better way to say it. Like,
hey, I
for me,
agree.
it adds a lot to a wrestling match when a heel is booed just devastatingly, and everybody just ruthlessly cheers a beloved babyface.
Yeah, much more than that, like, both are just terrific wrestlers.
Yep. There is that too. You know, you can't ever underplay that as far as, you know, wrestling matches go.
Yeah, with those two,
For
what
my
more do you need in a
blanket
match?
dumb statement of the day.
It happens quite often, Spencer.
I make a few of those in a day. At least one or two. Here's a match, Hayden, between a couple of veterans that I know you would love to see. I want to see Bryce the Slammer Sova take on Andy Anderson.
Oh. Now that you bring it up, that is a match I want to see.
Both are just... It's a lot like that hardcore match. Like, these are just two dudes who would go out and beat the ever-loving hell out of each other.
Yeah, like...
And both are terrific wrestlers. Like, it wouldn't be anything that would be unpleasant to watch.
Yeah, once again, a recurring theme in this episode, at the very least.
Episode 34 of Over the Top Rope.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
As old as this recent WrestleMania.
We are actually, yeah, that's fair. We're one episode away from the age of WrestleMania, which, no, I guess we're going to get there a little before WrestleMania.
Just a little bit.
We got a couple episodes in prior to that. Or we could take a couple weeks off.
Or just take a year off. Honestly, not a bad idea.
Should quit podcasting.
Yeah. Leave ourselves with some stress. Some self-loathing, too.
Hayden, before we wrap it up here on Over the Top Ropes, first little segment here, there's a couple of little matches that I want to touch on that we just, unfortunately, time constraints. Christian Strife versus Sheik Shabazz. I think that Christian Strife may have gone a little under the radar on this one because of his current, super, super unfortunate injury. He was the RCW champion as recently as January. The guy's an absolute talent. He's... the guy's got a kick like nobody else. Like, that guy, I watched that dude kick people in the face, and it's genuinely terrifying in a way that watching other people kick people in the face isn't terrifying.
Yeah, and to stack him up against Sheik Shabazz, probably the most terrifying man in the world.
A dude who can take a lot of kicks to the face.
Yeah.
Like at the last PWA.
He's a pretty tall guy. It's
well,
not like he can even kick him in the face.
And at fruition, he took an absolute
ground.
Beating from the Western Lions and Markey.
Yeah, unless
following their match.
Curb stomping him repeatedly.
And it's hard to bring down a tree that tall.
Yeah. So you have a big axe. Or a lot of small axes.
Or can swing. And I think Christian Strife proverbially could swing in this match. So, again, just an interesting matchup between a few people there that I really enjoy watching wrestle. Bobby Sharp versus Tyler James. Again, I don't know if you've watched Tyler James wrestle. He just signed with the CWE, who, again, will be making their Edmonton debut on April 6th. That's the promotion that I was telling you about that's bringing in Psychosis.
Oh,
I also believe Jimmy Jacobs is making dates, but I also am not 100% certain if that's only in their southern part or not.
Yeah.
Mike, let me know on this one, but I just cannot pull up my notes on this. So
yeah, we're talking about Albertan talent regardless, Spencer.
That's 100% true, Hayden. Other than that, the last match that I want here, just because I'm selfish and I really love a gimmick match as well, let's throw them in the Elimination Chamber. I don't know if there's ever been one done in Alberta. I know there's been cell matches. But I would love to see an Elimination Chamber match featuring 6 of my favorites. I would love to see Kid Cyrus of Monster Pro Wrestling, Dean Richter of Real Canadian Wrestling, Sweet Daddy Soul, the current Real Canadian Wrestling champion, Dylan Stone, Michael Allen, Richard Clark, and Gunnar, the Pagan Destroyer. Because, of course, Hayden, I wouldn't forget about him. Of course, we have an honorable mention. If there wasn't room in the Elimination Chamber, we were going to have Gunnar versus the Top Rope, round 2.
Ooh, that's a shot in the heart, Spencer.
Yeah, that poor guy, but maybe hopefully he can get his win back.
You inconsiderate bastard.
Albertan wrestling fans, if there's anybody that we missed, or is there anybody that you think that should be on the proverbial match card of dreams, as Hayden and I are calling it, because Alberta Mania was taken, let us know. We're always happy to get feedback. Honestly, we're always happy to apologize if you feel we've left you off this list, because chances are we did. There's lots of great Albertan talent out there. There's only limited room and time on the podcast because I know people get sick of listening to us. But seriously, Albertan wrestling is the best wrestling in the world. I will say that with confidence. But when we come back on Over the Top Rope, we're going to move on from Alberta. We're going to talk a little bit about the WWE World Wrestling Entertainment and some big news coming out of there on the road to WrestleMania on OTTR, Backbreaker Media, and Win Column Sports flagship podcast.
Well, this is Chris Parrish.
And Maniac.
And if you want to hear a podcast that's a little bit of all right.
And strugglelicious.
Yeah, and if you want to get involved with everything that is pro wrestling, everything that is, NHL, NFL, NBA.
Nah, not really, but a little bit of that and baseball.
Yeah, ball sports.
Ball sports!
Then come to Backbreaker Media, which is a division of Win Column Sports Network, and listen to the sounds of struggle.
Sounds of struggle!
And let me tell you this, if you're not into the sounds of struggle, then guess what? We don't care, because we only like the people that listen to us.
That's true.
And that,
listen to that, we're out of time.
So on top of that, we say later, bitches.
Welcome back to Over the Top Rope, the flagship podcast of the Win Column Sports Network and a proud member of Backbreaker Media. Hayden and I, we also just have to give our shout out to Beercade YEG, the home of Edmonton Wrestling, where you can catch each and every WWE pay-per-view live. Yes, live. And speaking of live, Hayden and I hosts Over the Top Rope Live prior to each and every pay-per-view at, again, Beercade YEG. Did the message clue in, Hayden?
Yeah, well, sometimes we'll just go there and do it on a non-pay-per-view day.
It's true. We'll just sort of hang out there and host our thoughts. We went there for St. Patrick's Day, played a lot of free video games. It was a blast.
Yeah, we don't air our thoughts. We don't go on Facebook
Our grievances.
Live. No. Save those for ourselves.
And Festivus.
That's correct.
Hayden, not a ton, to be honest with you, coming out of the WWE over the last couple of days. It was a fairly disappointing episode of Monday Night Raw. However, the biggest news of that disappointment was likely Kurt Angle's retirement match, or I suppose retirement opponent, was announced, and it is none other than the big bad Baron Corbin.
Big bad Constable Baron Corbin.
Big Constable Lone Wolf Baron Corbin.
Corbin.
Failed Money in the Bank cash-in loser, Lone Wolf Constable Baron Corbin.
Former United States champion.
Lone Wolf Constable failed Money in the Bank cash-in
Corbin
recipient Corbin. No, I believe Baron's the title.
Oh, excuse
I
me.
think Corbin's his first name.
No disrespect intended.
God, I just don't understand this. Given even that there's stuff going out, like apparently Kurt Angle's wife responded to Jim Ross saying that this was underwhelming.
Yeah.
She's
Took it straight
disappointed.
to the top. Well, and to be perfectly blunt, like it is.
It's an incredibly disappointing match. I'm genuinely concerned. Number one, if Kurt Angle wins this match, that's silly. Retirement matches should not be won. And if Kurt Angle loses this match, then I'm going to be incredibly scared watching Kurt Angle take an end of days.
Oh, now that you mentioned that, Spencer, that's not a pretty picture.
The man won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck. I don't see him retiring because of a broken freaking neck.
Maybe it'll snap everything back into place.
Yeah, I doubt that.
But I don't want to think about that.
I truly doubt that'll be the case.
True.
It's,
But no, it's completely disappointing, especially when you consider his long list of people that he wanted to face, like Seth Rollins, Styles, Bryan. But it's understandable that he couldn't face guys like that.
even a guy like Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah.
Excuse me, hired mercenary. Shelton Benjamin.
Really? Is that his new official nickname?
I have no idea. That's what I'm going with.
Oh. Okay, yeah.
I believe he's a Paul Heyman guy now, but I don't know if that's like an official Paul Heyman guy thing yet.
But, the one redeeming quality is that he's, I guess, doing this Kurt Angle farewell tour, which is,
His match
weird.
against Gable on Raw was terrific.
I gotta say, it was completely mediocre.
I enjoyed it.
Angle looked gassed the whole time. Like, he looked like a 50-year-old man that's had a few neck surgeries.
Oddly enough, that's probably because he's a 50-year-old man who's had a couple of neck surgeries.
Yeah, but I don't think that, deserves saying that he looked terrific or anything like
Well,
that. He really didn't.
ideally, after the match on April 7th, we'll be able to add Safe Worker to the title of Constable Baron Lone Wolf, failed Money in the Bank cash-in recipient,
Failed United States champion.
Bald Baron Corbin. Big bad Bald Baron Corbin.
Collector of Skulls, Baron Corbin.
Which is weird. Although I will give him credit, the guy won most metal athlete at the Revolver Awards a couple years ago, which is like a big metal magazine.
Well, and he's his own man. You can't judge a guy for, being his own man.
No, you really can't. But what we can judge is Baron Corbin
His failed Money in the Bank cash-in.
and blah.
Well said.
Either way,
we were on that way longer than we intended.
because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Baron
A
Corbin.
lot of anger and vitriol that's being spit out right here.
As an Oilers fan, it's like when I hear the name Tom Pody, it's like I'm perfectly aware Tom Pody's a great guy. Hell, he had a great career in the NHL, but he makes me a little more mad when I think about his career as an Oiler.
Because he did jack shit.
Well, not even that. It's just like, how the Oilers always seem to have one player they chase out of town.
Mm-hmm.
Like Pody was the first one I remember as a kid. So it's like I've just got like this obscene, like built-in, like, you know what I mean? It's like, he makes me a little more mad.
Well, we are a big city, but, we're the biggest city we're the furthest.
We're the northernmost
northernmost.
NHL city. Yes.
Yes.
Which is an attractive selling point.
Yeah.
Shelling point.
It really is in December, in particular.
Either way, the other match that we are rumored to have, because I don't believe it's been officially announced yet, Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre.
No, it's confirmed.
Is it?
Yeah, as of today.
All right, then we have Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre.
Actually, a hell of a match,
In
especially
what'll be a barn burner, I am certain.
And to be completely honest, just to touch on the last match's participants, like I would have preferred Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre over Roman Reigns versus Baron Corbin, failed Money in the Bank cash in, failed United States Championship, bald, Baron Corbin.
And bald's better than his old hair.
So I'm looking forward to this match. Like McIntyre Reigns.
And I both, man. This is going to be, again, an absolute barn burner. Roman Reigns looked great in his return to the ring with the Shield. He is no doubt going to want to show up for WrestleMania, like, obviously, and perform his best, as I'm sure everybody does. But like, Roman Reigns is a next level athlete, and so is Drew McIntyre.
Oh, no
I think
question.
that this is going to be one of the hardest matches to call, to be quite honest with you, because obviously you laugh at LOL Reigns wins, but a Drew McIntyre win at WrestleMania right now would be massive.
It'd be monumental.
Genuinely,
and
would
that would
make
solidify
another
him
star.
as a yeah, exactly. Took the words out of my mouth.
I would take great pride in doing that.
But yeah, even
Every time.
I think his beating Dean Ambrose last night was what qualified him for the match at WrestleMania.
Or Seth Rollins, wasn't it? It was Dean Ambrose 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and then it was Seth last night.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I tuned
off
out,
the
but-
interference
yeah,
from
I
Brock
tuned
Lesnar.
out.
Yep, you and I both, to be perfectly honest.
But other than that, we had Ronda Rousey, which, again, I just have to give my big shout out to Dana Brooke, because she looked excellent, again, in her short appearance on screen. I think the WWE could genuinely be onto something here. I really do.
Yeah.
I'll say it here now. Yeah, she's been fantastic on both the microphone and even in her limited appearances of taking a beating from Ronda Rousey. Like, there's a way to look good and a way to look shitty in taking a beating, and she's looked really good in taking a beating.
Well said.
So,
But, I've got to wonder whether or not this results in Dana Brooke being sent down to NXT, or what's going to become of her. But yeah, Ronda retains. And Ronda heads into WrestleMania as a Raw Women's Champion.
I agree. We also have the Boston Hug Connection taking on the reunited Divas of Doom, Natalya and Beth Phoenix.
This is the one that isn't confirmed, at least as of right now.
There we are.
Yeah, as of recording.
That's where my confusion came from. My
7:30 on Tuesday,
Mountain Standard Time.
MST.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for those in the Pacific time zone, that would be 6:30. We are right in the middle of the gauntlet match right now.
Super exciting. But yeah, back to business. But it seems like this is what's going to happen.
I would agree. I also think that you could still see more teams thrown in.
Yeah.
I would love to. One idea that I thought would be really, really cool is to see a fatal four-way match involving a team from, like, obviously the champions, a team from Raw, a team from SmackDown, and a team from NXT.
That'd be a great way to break in the titles.
I agree.
Yeah.
Really make a statement, but we don't know
Well-
if that's going to happen.
Well,
There is also the looming threat of, obviously, Nia Jax and Tamina.
yeah. But to replace that Raw team, like, you do need a team of legends. And initially it seemed like it was going to be Lita and Trish Stratus. But what happened to that? Who knows? But it seems like Natalya and Beth Phoenix are stepping in to fill up that role.
And more than adequate replacements, if I do add that myself.
But you are right. Like, tonight we saw Sasha Banks and Bayley face off against the Iconics. They beat them quite handily. So I think they're out of the conversation when it comes to, another team being added to the mix. But maybe the Sky Pirates, Kairi Sane and Io Shirai, maybe they'll be tossed into the match. But
I think so, too.
you got to wait and see.
The last match, I believe, that was announced as of the time of this recording, we have the United States Championship match currently standing at Rey Mysterio, your challenger, taking on Samoa Joe. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever think you'd get the chance to be able to say we're getting Samoa Joe versus Rey Mysterio?
For the United States Championship at WrestleMania.
What a world we live in, man.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much else we can say, but how excited we are for this.
But it begs a question, like even just going back to the last match, whether or not more participants are going to be added.
I would have to think that Andrade would be.
Yeah, it seems logical, but...
I would agree, but does WWE always do the logical thing?
Nope. They do what they want.
Absolutely not. And Hayden,
As they should.
As we sign off this show, we are watching Kofi Kingston take on Samoa Joe in part of this gauntlet match. Obviously, it will have been done by the time we put this podcast out for public consumption. Kofi Kingston has to win this, right?
He has to, but once again, can only wait and see.
I think Kofi has to go to WrestleMania. I think that's the best way to put it.
Maybe in the Andre the Giant Battle Royale.
Perhaps. Oh boy.
Please, God. Give him a prestigious match. Don't give him a garbage cop-out match.
Well, and in closing about the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, we close out with the main event. Right? As the Andre the Giant usually is.
We miss you, Andre. We really do. And I'll miss you, Spencer.
Well, while we joke about the main event, we are not joking. This is the end of Over the Top Rope, episode 34. Hayden, it's been a slice.
It's been a privilege.
Thanks for joining me, my friend. As always, don't forget to tune in to Over the Top Rope each and every Friday on Backbreaker Media, a proud member of the Win Column Sports Network. It's where you can find all your previews, reviews, and breaking news in Albertan wrestling and from the world of wrestling at large. And not even just wrestling, we got lots of great content there, including the Edmonton Prospects, the Edmonton Stingers of the CEBL, the Edmonton Oil Kings, a ton of great sports out there from the great province of Alberta, Canada. I've been your host, Spencer Love. Hayden, as always, thank you for joining me. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at HLoveMillionaire with no E. And where can we find you, Spencer?
Hayden, also on the Twitter machine, you can find me at SpennyLove_WCS. That stands for Win Column Sports.
Does it?
Yeah, you can also find Win Column on pretty well any platform out there. We've got, if you want audio, Podbean, Google Play, iTunes, SoundCloud. They're all there on the Backbreaker Media Network. You can also find the video style stuff, you know, the moving picture, on the Backbreaker Pivot Share channel. Mike, the referee, does excellent work over there. Says Sean Connery.
A great way to end off the podcast, Spencer.
I thought so too, Hayden. But as always, we want to save our final shout out on the show to our wonderful sponsors over at Beercade YEG, the home of Edmonton Wrestling. We also want to give a shout out to our new sponsor of White Ridge Incorporated, where you can get all of your attractive Win Column Sports Network merchandise soon to debut. Stay tuned to the social media channels for that one, or just get a hold of us on any of our social media channels prior to pre-order your, you know, attractive Win Column Sports Network merchandise.
Memorabilia.
Memorabilia, there we go. We'll get bobbleheads one of these days.
Fax us.
As mentioned, it's been Over the Top Rope, episode 34. We have been the Brothers of Discussion, and thank you for listening on Backbreaker Media, a proud member of the Win Column Sports Network.